Luna Martinez stepped off the transport shuttle and immediately knew she was going to hate this place. The Galactic Defense Academy sprawled before her like some architect's fever dream, all gleaming spires and floating platforms that definitely violated at least 3 laws of physics she remembered from high school. Not that anyone here would care what some backwater Earth girl thought about their fancy space college. "Move it, dirt crawler!" The voice came from behind her, dripping with the kind of casual contempt that made Luna's eye twitch. She turned to find herself face to face with what looked like a walking crystal formation wearing a military uniform. The nameplate read Cadet Vex, in that pretentious galactic script everyone insisted on using. "Excuse me?" Luna hefted her duffel bag and tried to look like she belonged here, which was about as successful as trying to look dignified while wearing a potato sack. Vex's crystalline features shifted into what might have been a smirk, if crystals could smirk. "You heard me, Earthborn. Try not to contaminate anything important with your primitive presence." A rumbling laugh joined the conversation as a mountain of muscle and attitude lumbered over. Korath of the Titan clan stood roughly 8 feet tall and looked like he bench-pressed asteroids for fun. His species had conquered half the outer rim through the simple strategy of being too big and stubborn to kill. "Look what the galaxy dragged in," Korath boomed, his voice carrying enough bass to rattle nearby windows. "A genuine mud-hugger. Tell me, little human, do you still use combustion engines and chemical propulsion? How delightfully quaint." Luna opened her mouth to explain that humans had actually figured out fusion power decades ago, thank you very much, but a third voice cut through her thoughts like a telepathic knife. "Oh, this is rich." Zila materialized beside them, her pale blue skin practically glowing with smug satisfaction. The Mindari were known for their psychic abilities and their complete inability to keep their opinions to themselves. "I can read her surface thoughts. She actually believes she belongs here. How precious." The gathering crowd of alien cadets found this hilarious. Luna stood there like a specimen in a zoo exhibit, while various species she couldn't even pronounce laughed at the primitive human who thought she could play with the big kids. "I scored in the top percentile on the entrance exams," Luna said, trying to inject some steel into her voice. "Same as everyone else here." "The entrance exams." Vex's laugh sounded like wind chimes in a blender. "They probably had to create a special remedial version just for your species. What's next, participation trophies?" Commander Throck chose that moment to stride onto the landing platform, his scarred hide and cybernetic implants marking him as a veteran of about 17 different wars. The cadets snapped to attention. But Luna caught something odd in his expression when his eyes landed on her. Not contempt like the others, but something that might have been concern? "Cadets," Throck's voice could have stripped paint. "Welcome to the Academy. You're here because you represent the finest your species has to offer. Some of you," his gaze swept over Vex and Korath, "come from proud warrior traditions spanning millennia." The alien cadets preened. "Others," Throck's eyes found Luna again, "come from newer civilizations. Remember that diversity of experience can be educational." Zayla snorted. "Educational, right. What's she going to teach us, how to rub sticks together?" "Actually," Luna said, her patience finally snapping, "humans invented nuclear weapons before we figured out space travel. We're really good at the whole creative destruction thing." The laughter that followed made Luna's cheeks burn. Korath slapped his knee hard enough to crack the pavement. "Nuclear weapons," he wheezed. "Oh, that's adorable. Wait until you see what real civilizations consider weaponry." As the group dispersed toward the dormitories, Luna caught Commander Throck muttering something under his breath that sounded suspiciously like, "if they only knew." But when she looked back, he was already walking away, shaking his head like a man who'd seen too much and couldn't unsee any of it. Luna shouldered her bag and followed the crowd, wondering if it was too late to transfer to a nice quiet agriculture program somewhere, preferably on a planet where nobody laughed at humans for sport. She had no idea that halfway across the galaxy, her arrival had triggered the most classified alert system in known space. The next morning brought what Commander Throck generously called orientation exercises, and what Luna privately dubbed creative ways to humiliate the human. The alien cadets had apparently spent their sleepless night brainstorming new and exciting forms of harassment. "Today, we're testing your reflexes with standard academy equipment," announced Instructor Crix, a mantis-like creature whose idea of encouragement involved clicking disapprovingly at everything. Nothing too advanced. We wouldn't want to overwhelm our more primitive participants. Luna found herself strapped into something that looked like a torture device designed by committee. The reaction chamber was supposedly a routine test where cadets dodged energy blasts while navigating an obstacle course. What nobody mentioned was that the difficulty settings went up to 11, and Luna's machine seemed permanently stuck there. "Oops," Vex said with fake concern as another plasma bolt nearly singed Luna's eyebrows. "Looks like there might be a malfunction. Should we stop the test?" "No." Luna gritted her teeth and rolled under a spinning blade that had definitely not been in the safety briefing. "I'm fine." Which was weird, because she actually was fine. Better than fine. Her body moved like it had been designed for this exact scenario, anticipating attacks before they came, finding gaps in the obstacle pattern that shouldn't have been there. By the time the buzzer sounded, she'd completed the course in record time. The silence that followed was the kind you usually heard right before someone got fired or planets exploded. That was, Crix consulted his tablet, clicking furiously, unprecedented. The course record was held by a Nexarian speedrunner. You just beat it by 14 seconds. Korth frowned, his massive brow furrowing like continental drift. "That equipment is calibrated for species with enhanced reflexes. How did a human—" "Lucky guess." Luna tried for a casual shrug. But something cold was crawling up her spine. The movements had felt natural, instinctive, like muscle memory she'd never built. Commander Throck appeared at her shoulder with the stealth of someone who'd had a lot of practice sneaking up on people. "Cadet Martinez." A word. He led her away from the group, and Luna caught fragments of whispered conversation behind them. Words like impossible and genetic enhancement, and something that sounded suspiciously like, "Oh dear gods, what if the rumors are true?" "Commander," Luna started, but Throck held up a scarred hand. "Tell me about Earth," he said quietly. "What do humans do for fun?" "For fun?" Luna blinked. "I don't know. Sports? Movies? Extreme rock climbing? My cousin does this thing called free solo cliff diving that's basically jumping off mountains with a parachute, but only sometimes." Throck went very still. "And this is recreational?" "Well, yeah. Though my uncle prefers deep-sea cave diving in places where the pressure would crush most vehicles. He says it's relaxing." "Relaxing?" Throck repeated the word like he was testing a foreign language. "And what do humans consider dangerous?" Luna thought about it. "Mostly each other, I guess. Oh, and tax season. Really hate tax season." Something in Throck's expression shifted. He pulled out a datapad and made a note that looked suspiciously like Code Red. "They think recreational death sports are stress relief." "Commander, is everything okay? Everyone keeps acting like humans are some kind of—" Luna paused, trying to find the right words. "I mean, back home, I'm completely normal. Average, even. My little sister could probably beat me in most of these tests." Throck's stylus snapped in half. "Your sister," he said carefully. "Is she also planning to attend the academy?" "God, no. Jenny wants to be a marine biologist. She's obsessed with studying great white sharks in their natural habitat, without protective gear because she thinks cage diving is for tourists." Throck made another note that looked like it might be someone's obituary. "Good day, Martinez," he said finally. "I want you to know that here at the Academy we value discretion. Some information about various species is kept classified for diplomatic reasons." "Sure, I get that. Like how everyone pretends the Zephians aren't total jerks, right?" "Among other things." Throck's smile was about as reassuring as a hungry shark's. "Just remember, not everything is what it appears to be." As Luna walked back toward the group, she missed the commander activating his encrypted communicator. "This is Throck," he said quietly. "The package has arrived, and is performing exactly as predicted. Recommend we accelerate the containment protocols. And for the love of all that's sacred, make sure the weapons training is set to minimum safe distance. We're dealing with instincts here, not learned behavior." Meanwhile, Luna rejoined her fellow cadets, who were staring at her like she'd just grown a second head. Or possibly, like she'd always had a second head, and they were just now noticing it was holding a knife. 3 days later, Luna had almost convinced herself that the whole impossible reflex test thing was just a fluke. Maybe the equipment really had malfunctioned. Maybe alien technology wasn't as foolproof as everyone claimed. Maybe she was just having the kind of lucky streak that would inevitably end with her face planting into a wall. She should have known the universe had a sense of humor about these things. The routine training exercise started innocently enough. Advanced weapons familiarization according to the course catalog, which made it sound about as threatening as a pottery class. What the catalog failed to mention was that familiarization apparently meant try not to die horribly while handling military-grade death machines. "Today we're working with Helix Disruptors," announced Instructor Crix, gesturing to a rack of weapons that looked like someone had crossed a rifle with a particularly aggressive piece of modern art. "These beauties can punch through 6 inches of reinforced titanium or completely scramble the nervous system of most organic life forms. Please observe all safety protocols." The safety protocols, as it turned out, included everything except don't let the sadistic alien cadets mess with the targeting system while the human isn't looking. Luna hefted her assigned weapon, surprised by how natural it felt in her hands. The grip seemed designed for human anatomy, which was weird. But then again, maybe the Academy had some kind of adaptive technology. She lined up at the firing range alongside her fellow cadets, all of whom were giving her a wide berth, like she might suddenly explode. "Target acquisition," Crix announced. "Fire when ready." The first volley went fine. Energy beams lanced out toward the practice targets, most finding their marks with varying degrees of accuracy. Vex, predictably, managed a perfect score while making it look effortless. Korath's shots hit with enough force to completely vaporize his targets, which seemed like overkill but was probably just Tuesday for his species. Luna's shots were clean, precise, and somehow felt completely natural despite never having held an alien weapon before in her life. "Excellent marksmanship, Cadet Martinez," Crix clicked approvingly. "Now we'll increase the difficulty. Moving targets, multiple threat scenarios." That's when things went sideways. The targeting system glitched, or at least that's what the official report would later claim. Instead of harmless practice holograms, the range suddenly populated with what looked like actual combat scenarios. Hostile targets appeared from all angles, their energy signatures reading as real, immediate threats. Most of the cadets froze. A few dove for cover. Korath roared something in his native language that probably wasn't appropriate for mixed company. Luna moved. Later, watching the security footage, Academy analysts would describe her actions as impossible, unprecedented, and absolutely terrifying. In real time, it looked like Luna had suddenly gained the ability to predict the future and bend the laws of physics to her will. She spun, rolled, and fired in a continuous fluid motion that seemed choreographed by someone with an intimate understanding of death. Energy beams that should have found their targets instead struck empty air as Luna moved through spaces that shouldn't have existed. Her return fire was surgical, precise, each shot finding critical system points on the hostile projections. In 17 seconds, she neutralized 14 separate threats while simultaneously protecting 3 cadets who had been caught in the crossfire. When the simulation finally shut down, the range fell into the kind of silence usually reserved for funeral services and natural disasters. "Holy fractured crystals," Vex whispered, his usual arrogance replaced by something that looked suspiciously like terror. How did she?" Korath was backing away from Luna like she'd suddenly sprouted fangs and claws. "That wasn't training, that was combat instinct, real combat instinct. I've seen veteran warriors with decades of experience who couldn't move like that." Zila, for once in her telepathic life, seemed completely speechless. Her mental probing had apparently run into something that made her distinctly uncomfortable. Luna looked down at the weapon in her hands, suddenly aware that her heart rate was completely normal. She should be gasping, shaking, maybe having some kind of adrenaline crash. Instead, she felt like she'd just finished a light workout. I think there was a malfunction. The targets were moving differently than they should have been. The targets, Crick said slowly, consulting his tablet with shaking appendages, were set to Apex Predator difficulty. That setting is usually reserved for graduates with at least 5 years of field experience. Oh! Luna set the weapon down carefully. Should I fill out an incident report or something? Before anyone could answer, every alarm in the academy began screaming at once. Emergency lights bathed the range in pulsing red, and the academy's central AI began broadcasting in that calm, terrifying voice that artificial intelligences used when everything was going horribly wrong. Attention all personnel, initiating Bioscan Protocol 7. All cadets report to designated areas for immediate species verification. This is not a drill. Luna felt every eye in the room turn toward her, and for the first time since arriving at the academy, she began to suspect that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as normal as she thought. The bioscanner looked like something you'd find in a high-end medical facility if medical facilities were designed by paranoid military engineers with unlimited budgets and serious trust issues. Luna stood in the center of a ring of sensors that hummed with barely contained energy, trying to look like someone who definitely belonged there and wasn't about to trigger a galactic incident. Just a routine scan, Commander Throck assured her, though his definition of routine apparently included having a full security detail stationed around the room. Standard procedure, after any training anomalies. Right, Luna said, because arguing with armed aliens seemed like a poor life choice. Totally normal. The other cadets had been processed quickly, their scans producing neat little readouts that confirmed what everyone already knew. Vex registered as a standard Zephyrian, all crystalline arrogance and predictable genetic markers. Korath came back as textbook Titan Clan, with the expected modifications for enhanced strength and durability. Even Zila's telepathic abilities showed up exactly where they should on the Mundari baseline. Luna's scan was taking considerably longer. Is there a problem with the machine? She asked as the sensors completed their third full cycle, accompanied by increasingly frantic beeping sounds that didn't seem particularly encouraging. No problem, Thruck replied, but his knuckles had gone white where he gripped his datapad. The scanner is just being thorough. That's when the display lit up like a Christmas tree having an argument with a nuclear reactor. Warning symbols cascaded across every screen in the room, each one more ominous than the last. The central display flashed through a rainbow of alert colors before settling on a shade of red that Luna was pretty sure didn't exist in nature. Text began scrolling past in Galactic Standard, most of it involving words like critical, containment, and oh dear gods why. But it was the final readout that made everyone in the room go very, very quiet. Species: Terran human Homo sapiens. Classification: Apex Predator, Death World Origin. 3-level, Omega. Combat Assessment. Extinction Class Organism. Recommended Action: Do not engage. Main, safe distance. Alert. High command immediately. And then, in letters that seemed to throb with their own malevolent energy: Heartborn, do not engage. The silence that followed could have been bottled and sold as a weapon of mass destruction. Vex was the first to break. Death World Origin? His voice cracked like puberty hitting him for the second time. What do you mean, Death World Origin? Instructor Crix was consulting his tablet with the desperate intensity of someone looking up how to write a will in multiple languages. According to the database, Earth is classified as a Class 12 Death World, the highest rating in our system. That's impossible, Korath protested, though he'd unconsciously backed up until he hit the wall. Death worlds don't produce civilizations. They produce nightmare fuel and cautionary tales. Apparently, Throck said grimly, they also produce humans. Luna blinked. I'm sorry, what now? Earth is dangerous? Have you seen Earth? We have pandas. Pandas are basically living stuffed animals that can barely be bothered to reproduce. Your planet, Zayla whispered, her telepathic abilities apparently picking up something that made her go pale, is 90% water, filled with predators that can sense electrical fields and smell blood from miles away. Your land masses are covered in plants that can kill you just by touching them. Your weather systems regularly produce storms that could level cities. Well, yeah, But we have umbrellas. Your umbrellas, Throat consulted his notes, are apparently used for recreational activities like base jumping and storm chasing. Okay, when you put it like that, Luna paused. Actually, no, that still sounds pretty normal. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, is way scarier than any shark. The security detail exchanged glances that suggested they were mentally updating their wills. The classification system, Crix explained in the tone of someone delivering very bad news, rates Death World survival on a scale of 1 to 12. Most civilized species evolved on Class 2 or 3 worlds. Class 5 is considered barely habitable. Class 8 is theoretically survivable, with extensive technological support. And Class 12? Luna asked, though she was starting to suspect she didn't want to know. Class 12 worlds are considered so hostile that contact is forbidden by galactic treaty. The assumption has always been that nothing could evolve there and survive, let alone develop intelligence and space travel. Commander Throck stepped forward, his expression serious enough to carve monuments. Luna Martinez, by order of the Galactic Defense Council and about 17 different species treaties that I'm going to have to look up, you are hereby classified as a walking extinction event. Luna stared at him. That seems harsh. The scanner, Throck continued relentlessly, indicates that your reaction times, combat instincts, and adapted capabilities are not learned skills. They're evolutionary advantages, developed by a species that had to fight for survival against literally everything on their home planet. But I can't even open pickle jars without help. That's probably because your species learned to make tools specifically because you got tired of ripping things apart with your bare hands. Luna looked around the room at the faces staring back at her. Fear, awe, and what might have been a little bit of professional admiration from the security detail. So, she said finally, does this mean I'm getting kicked out of the academy because I really need those student loan deferrals? Commander Throck's laugh had all the warmth and comfort of a supernova going off in your backyard. Kicked out? Oh, Cadet Martinez, you're not getting kicked out. You're getting promoted to a classification that doesn't technically exist yet. He gestured to a chair that had definitely not been in the room 5 minutes ago, the kind of chair that suggested someone had been planning for this conversation for a very long time. Sit down. It's time you learned why half the galaxy has nightmares about your species and the other half pretends you don't exist. Luna sat, mostly because her knees had decided they were done with the whole supporting body weight thing. I'm sorry, nightmares? About humans? We invented ice cream and dog videos. We're basically the galaxy's therapy animals. You invented ice cream, Throck agreed, after developing freeze-drying technology as a food preservation method for Arctic survival. Dog videos came after you domesticated wolves, which are apex predators that your species decided would make good pets. Well, when you put it like that, Throck activated a holographic display that showed what looked like a galactic map, but with several systems marked in ominous red. Earth, officially, doesn't exist. Oh, we know it's there, but it's been classified as a containment zone for the last 3 centuries. Containment zone? A place where we put things that are too dangerous to interact with, but too interesting to ignore completely. Throck's expression was the kind you'd see on someone explaining why they kept a live grenade as a paperweight. Your species achieved faster-than-light travel approximately 50 years ago. Do you know what happened next? We started exploring space. You started conquering it, not on purpose, you understand. Humans apparently don't have conquest instincts. You have exploration instincts, which, as it turns out, are significantly more terrifying. The holographic display shifted to show what looked like surveillance footage. Humans in spacesuits wandering around environments that should have killed them instantly, taking samples of things that were actively trying to eat them, and generally behaving like tourists in hell. Your explorers, Throck continued, have a disturbing tendency to treat Category 5 hazards as minor inconveniences. We've tracked human expedition teams swimming in acid lakes, using plasma storms as navigation beacons, and setting up research stations inside active volcanoes. That does sound like something we do, Luna admitted. My cousin Brad tried to surf a tsunami once. He said the wave formation was really interesting. Every alien in the room took a step back. The Galactic Defense Council, Throck said, consulting his notes, has spent the last 50 years trying to figure out how to handle first contact with a species that considers recreational activities to include free-fall skydiving, volcano surfing, and something called extreme ironing. Extreme ironing is actually pretty relaxing, Luna protested. There's something peaceful about doing laundry on the edge of a cliff. Crix made a sound like a filing cabinet having an existential crisis. Your species irons clothing in locations specifically chosen for their potential lethality. Well, yeah, otherwise it's just regular ironing. Cathrock pulled up another display, this one showing what appeared to be military assessments. Earth's technology has been classified as adaptive warfare gear disguised as consumer products. Your automobiles are essentially armored personnel carriers that civilians operate for transportation. Your kitchen knives are manufactured to military-grade specifications. Your children's toys include projectile weapons and chemical sets. Those are educational toys, Luna said weakly. Chemistry sets teach science. Your chemistry sets, Zila whispered, include instructions for creating compounds that are banned as weapons of mass destruction in 14 different star systems. But they also come with safety goggles. The silence that followed suggested that safety goggles were not considered adequate protection against weapons of mass destruction. Here's what really terrifies the Galactic Council. Throck leaned forward. Your species doesn't seem to understand that you're terrifying. You think you're normal, average, harmless. We are harmless, Luna insisted. Most of us spend our free time watching Netflix and arguing about pizza toppings. Your Netflix includes documentaries about people who wrestle crocodiles for entertainment. Your pizza toppings include capsaicin compounds that are used as riot control agents by civilized species. Luna opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. Okay, I see how that might look bad. The Council's current theory, Throck continued, is that humans don't have a survival instinct. You have a thriving instinct. You don't just want to survive. You want to excel, to push boundaries, to see what happens if you poke the dangerous thing with a stick. That's not, Luna paused. Actually, that's pretty accurate. Which brings us to you, Cadet Martinez. You're not here by accident. Earth government has been quietly sending selected individuals to various galactic institutions for the last decade. Cultural exchanges, they call them. And really? Luna asked, though she was beginning to suspect she knew the answer. Throck's smile could have been used to advertise dental work in particularly morbid medical journals. Really, you're reconnaissance scouts. Your species is preparing for official first contact, and they want to know exactly how much trouble you're going to cause when you introduce yourselves to the galaxy. Luna looked around at the faces surrounding her, all wearing expressions that suggested they just realized they were locked in a room with a ticking time bomb that thought it was a harmless kitchen timer. So, she said finally, how much trouble am I going to cause? The answer, as it turned out, was enough trouble to completely restructure galactic civilization, but in the most politely terrifying way possible. Within 48 hours, Luna's status at the Academy had transformed from harmless laughingstock to extinction event we really need to keep happy. The change was so dramatic it gave her whiplash, and probably gave the alien cadets some kind of collective nervous breakdown. It started with breakfast. Luna! Vex practically materialized beside her table, his crystalline features radiating desperate friendliness. I saved you a seat, right here, at the head of the table, with the best view and the softest cushions. Gone was the sneering arrogance, replaced by the kind of aggressive hospitality usually reserved for visiting dictators or armed nuclear devices. Vex had somehow procured what appeared to be a throne made of crystallized light, which he'd positioned at the optimal angle to catch the morning sun. That's really not necessary, Luna said, eyeing the throne with suspicion. I'm fine with regular chairs. Nonsense, Korath boomed, appearing with a breakfast tray that could have fed a small army. Only the finest for our honored colleague. I've prepared a selection of delicacies from across the galaxy. The delicacies appeared to include everything except actual food that humans could safely consume. Luna stared at what might have been either exotic fruit or small, decorative explosives. I usually just eat cereal, she said weakly. Cereal? Korath laughed, had a slightly hysterical edge. How wonderfully minimalist, yes, cereal, the breakfast of apex predators who are secure enough in their dominance to consume simple grains. Zayla drifted over, her usual telepathic smugness replaced by something that looked suspiciously like terror, barely held in check by diplomatic training. Luna, I wanted to apologize for any misunderstandings during our initial interactions. I hope we can be friends. Close friends. The kind of friends who don't end up on opposite sides of extinction events. Luna looked around the dining hall, where every conversation had stopped, and every eye was focused on her with the kind of attention usually reserved for unexploded ordnance. Is everyone going to act weird now? Weird? Vex's laugh sounded like wind chimes having a panic attack. We're not acting weird. We're acting completely normal. This is how we always treat our fellow cadets, who happen to be walking biological weapons with the emotional stability of a friendly golden retriever. I'm not a biological weapon, Luna protested. I'm an accounting major. An accounting major, Korath repeated reverently, who can calculate the exact trajectory needed to neutralize 14 hostile targets while protecting civilians. Your mathematics skills are clearly far more advanced than we initially appreciated. Commander Throck chose that moment to enter the dining hall, and Luna watched with fascination as every alien in the room snapped to attention. Not the casual respect they'd shown before, but the kind of rigid military bearing that suggested someone had recently updated the threat assessment protocols. Cadet Martinez, Thurk approached with the measured steps of someone navigating a minefield. I trust you're settling in well to your new circumstances. If by circumstances you mean everyone treating me like I might accidentally destroy the solar system, then yeah, great. Luna poked at what might have been alien bacon. Can I ask you something? Every conversation in the dining hall stopped. The silence was so complete Luna could hear her own heartbeat, which was probably not helping with the whole terrifying apex predator image. Of course, Throck said carefully. What's my actual mission here? Because I'm starting to think it wasn't really about getting a degree in interstellar business management. Throck's smile was the kind reserved for explaining why someone's life insurance premiums had just gone up. Your mission officially is cultural exchange and diplomatic preparation. And unofficially? Unofficially, you're here to prove that humans can integrate into galactic society without accidentally triggering a species-wide panic response. Luna looked around at the faces staring back at her, all wearing expressions somewhere between awe and the kind of existential dread usually reserved for cosmic horror movies. How am I doing so far? Well, Throck consulted his notes. The good news is that you've successfully demonstrated that humans can adapt to alien technology and social structures. The concerning news is that you've done it so effectively that we've had to implement new safety protocols for the first time in the Academy's history. What kind of safety protocols? All weapons training is now conducted via remote hologram. All physical combat exercises have been redesigned to account for reflexes that technically shouldn't be possible. And all meal planning now includes a consultation with xenobiology experts to ensure we're not accidentally feeding you anything that might enhance your already terrifying capabilities. Luna stared at him. You're afraid of making me stronger? Luna, Throck said gently, yesterday you completed an obstacle course designed for cybernetically enhanced warriors while eating a sandwich and humming something called Don't Stop Believin'. We're not just afraid of making you stronger, we're afraid of what you might accomplish if you actually try. The dining hall erupted in nervous laughter, the kind that suggested everyone was in on a joke that might actually be an extinction event. So, Luna said, looking around at her fellow cadets who were now hanging on her every word like she might accidentally declare war by ordering dessert, I guess this means I'm not getting kicked out. Kicked out? Vex's crystalline features shifted into something that might have been horror. Luna, you're not getting kicked out. You're getting your own wing of the Academy, a personal security detail, and a diplomatic immunity card that's apparently been pre-approved by 17 different galactic governments. Plus, Korath added helpfully, we've all been enrolled in mandatory courses on human cultural sensitivity and how to avoid accidentally provoking an apex predator. Luna sat back in her definitely not a throne and looked around at the dining hall full of aliens who had gone from mocking her to treating her like a combination of beloved pet and nuclear weapon. Outside the windows she could see construction crews already at work on what looked suspiciously like reinforced bunkers disguised as dormitory improvements. "You know what?" she said finally, reaching for what she really hoped was alien coffee. "I think I'm going to like it here." The collective sigh of relief could probably be heard from orbit, but Luna was pretty sure that was just the Academy's new atmospheric regulation system kicking in. After all, they couldn't be too careful around someone who might accidentally sneeze hard enough to destabilize local weather patterns. She had a feeling her report home was going to be very interesting.